I love to see the towns passing by and to ride these rails neath God's blue sky. Let me travel this land from the mountains to the sea, 'cause that's the life I believe He meant for me. And when I'm gone and at my grave you stand, say God called home your rambling man.
Welcome to Rambling Man Podcast, episode number 115. This one's with Gale Hinton, and we talk about murals. Spoiler alert, I think she said she's done close to 40,000 murals, which is fascinating and amazing. It's a great interview. I just kind of cold messaged her because I had read an article about her. She ended up being one of the best guests I've ever had and a truly amazing person, flying in the face of adversity over and over again. She is great. I love that she's been doing art for all these years and created so much art for kids to see. If you'd like to learn more about her, you can find her on Facebook at facebook.com/Gale Hinton Murals, GaleHintonMurals. Throw her a like and make sure to tell her Rambling Man sent you. Sponsor this week is Feral Giant. Feral Giant is a graphic design, illustration, and social media consultation company based here in Knoxville, Tennessee. Though they do work for clients big and small all over the country, all over the globe, in fact. But they also do photography, videography, video editing, and audio editing, website design, SEO, writing, content development. Hell, they'll babysit your kids if it nets them money. So make sure you give them a follow on social media on either Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn at Feral Giant. And be sure to give them an email today and hire them for your next project. Without much further ado, here's the episode. Are you originally from here?
I am native.
Which part of town did you grow up in?
Well, when I was born, I lived over off Keith Avenue, near Rural High and Westview, at the bottom of the hill.
Yeah.
And lived there and went to Westview Elementary School. Of course, back then, we didn't do kindergarten.
Yeah.
We didn't have kindergarten, let alone preschool.
Yeah.
So I started school when I was 6 and lived there until I was through the 6th grade and would have gone to Rural High School with all my buddies.
Yeah.
But my mom and dad moved to where I live now. And so
here in South Knoxville. I'll turn this off so I don't get cat entry updates as we go. Okay, so you moved to South Knoxville. It's kind of a shame that Rural High School is so run down now.
Oh, yeah, they can't. I think they talked about refurbishing and doing something,
right.
But I think it would just be so hard. They let it go way too long.
And that, so I went to Fulton, as we mentioned, and my first year at Fulton is the first year they closed down Rural and moved half of the kids from Rural to Fulton and half of the kids to AE.
Yeah.
And we had a little bit of loggerheads on.
Right, right.
People still wearing Rural jackets.
I know. I can imagine. Yeah. How cool.
Okay, so South Knoxville, and you went to South? It was South.
No, it was, well, when I moved here, I went to Moreland Heights because I was, they still had 7th and 8th grade with the elementary school, which I think was really better.
Okay.
As I've traveled around and I see schools, some schools still do that.
Okay.
And I've always said that middle school was the downfall of all mankind.
Okay.
But because the little kids kind of looked up to the bigger kids, it made us more responsible, made us feel grown up. And then we moved from this 8th grade to, I went to Young High, which is now Kroger. And we actually have shirts that say I graduated from Kroger High.
I forgot Young. Yeah, that's right. Young.
Yeah, we were young. And it was a great school.
And I've heard tell of South and Young and Austin and East, how they all were split schools.
Oh, yeah.
Back in the day. It's wild. I mentored a kid at South Young. South Doyle? South Doyle.
Probably South Doyle. Yeah, because they're further that way.
And I was amazed at how big that school is now, that it's on different sides of the street. And
yeah, I think the middle school or something is across the street from the high school, and it's changed.
Yeah, the biggest thing I remember is when I played football at Fulton. When we played South Doyle, our side, the visitors' side, was in a ditch, and it rained, so we were standing in water the whole time.
Well, that was tacky.
Well, we thought it was like, we see what you're doing here.
Yeah,
Even
we got it.
in high school, I was like, I see what you're doing here. I know we talked about this often, but what did your folks do for a living?
Okay. My father was an engineer and an architect and also did artwork. Mm-hmm. He designed homes for people all over, but he worked for Kern's Bakery. Okay. And it was kind of cool because they always had that little merry-go-round, Kern's Bakery did, that they took to parties. Well, I never had a party without one because it was free. And so that was kind of cool. And then my mom, she grew up in La Follette, Tennessee, and moved here and met my dad. They got married, and she was a beautician. She owned her own salon downtown Knoxville.
Oh, wow.
On Church Avenue across from Man's Funeral Home.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was, and now it's leveled, and I think, is it the Hyatt or one of those hotels, and something else is sitting right there in the middle of it.
Yeah, I can't remember which hotel that is, but I know because that's where I park. I'm on a. Nobody do this because this is my little hideaway spot. Whenever I go to a show at the Bijou or the Tennessee, I park on that bridge.
Oh yeah,
because it's free after 6, and nobody ever parks there.
Sure.
So it's my
your little place.
I might cut that out of the podcast.
I think if I were you, I would.
So nobody hears my tucked away place. Your dad was into art. Yeah. Was your mom was art always a thing when you were a kid?
It was. I mean, I you know how it is when you're just a little kid. Mom and dad go to work, but when people would ask me what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I was like 4, I always said, I want to be just like my mama. I want to do nothing. Well, but my mother worked very hard, and so did my dad. And I remember the first thing that I remember, which there may have been other things, but when my dad got back from World War II, I was born about 7-8 months after Pearl Harbor was bombed. Oh, wow. So this makes me old, officially. And but I just remember that my dad built me an easel because they didn't have any that kind of fit a 4-year-old back in the day.
Yeah.
And the other thing that was kind of interesting, my father had toys that his father made him that I played with when there was no rubber, no steel, all that. During the war, it all went to the war effort. And so my father had little trucks and things that my grandfather made from just whatever he had. It was kind of cool. I mean, I didn't know the difference back then. I do now.
My dad and I were at an estate sale yesterday when he found some war rations.
Oh, yeah.
While we were there. That and foreign money that I ended up buying the foreign money. Oh, yeah.
My dad brought a lot of money back from, he was at Okinawa, and he had money back, and they would let him kind of roam the island, I think, when no one was shooting at him. And he saw a shoe it was a Japanese soldier shoe, and he was going to bring it home with him. He tried to bring souvenirs. I mean, it's kind of interesting, that kind of thing. And he picked it up, but there was a foot in it, so he decided to leave it on the island. But it was. It was kind of an interesting time. So he built this little easel for me, and he bought me like this. I guess it's the equivalent of newsprint now. Those big tablets that were big, and he would say, "Just draw whatever's in your head," and I would, and it was things that I'd seen. In my 4 years of life.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of snow scenes because during the Army time, we lived in Denver, Colorado, and Pratt, Kansas, and there was a lot of snow.
Yeah.
And, but here was his best advice. And I keep telling people this even till today. I remember him looking at me and saying, "I never want to see you take a coloring book and let somebody tell you to stay inside the lines."
Wow.
He said, "Never do it."
Yeah.
Well, not to say that I did not, but I never did it in front of my father.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people had coloring books, and you had things that they printed off at school, and they, But he never saw me do it, and he said, the best advice I can give you is to make your own lines and then decide how to stay inside of them.
That's amazing.
So that was my art advice from my father.
That's amazing. Yeah, the thing I just told Patricia is my grandfather, when he never talked, he was always quiet, and he always looked angry.
Oh, yeah.
Always.
I had one of those, too.
But he loved kids. It was very nice, just
quiet.
Different generation. And,
they are.
I was in college. I was working at Taco Bell. And it wasn't great, and so I was going to go work at Walmart. I just needed a job. It was, in my family, it was not an option to not have a job.
Right.
And I was talking to him about it was going to be harder to work at Walmart because more strict schedules and all this stuff, and it's going to be harder to make school and that work. And he sat there, and I don't know why I opened up to him, but I just opened up to him and talked. And he, at the end, of hearing me blather, he said, "Are you happy?" I said, "What?" He's like, "Are you happy?" I was like, "No." He's like, "Life's too short to be unhappy." And then he just got up and walked away.
It really is.
And then he passed away less than a month later.
Oh, my goodness.
So I immediately walked into Taco Bell, turned in my notice.
And went.
And did not work at Walmart, did not get the job at Walmart, ended up, there's a printing company in town that my uncle, this is a very Knoxville thing, my uncle's ex-wife worked there. And he was like, "If you ever want to work, you should call her." So she had me call the foreman of the shop and say, "Hey, I would like to come interview." And I called him in the span of a month or so, like 2 or 3 times a week. And he told me years later, he's like, "If you hadn't called me so many times, I wouldn't have hired you."
You were persistent.
Yes. And if my grandfather had not said that and
you
then passed away, I probably would be working at Walmart.
Oh, I'm fully believe that things happen for a reason.
Yeah.
And sometimes we fight them.
Yeah.
And if we would just let go and do what we feel is right, we'd probably be a lot better off.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm in a weird transition. I've worked for myself for 5.5 years. But 2020 and 2021 were so rough that I ended up finally getting a job, and I haven't made it very public. And it's not because I'm worried about it. It's I don't want people talking about it.
Yeah,
I was talking about failing, even though I don't care what they think. I don't.
You just prefer to.
It's my own thing. It's my own choice, and some people will not understand.
They won't.
But that doesn't. Even though that doesn't matter and that shouldn't matter, it still will bother me.
Yeah. Well, a lot of things you just need to
let go.
Keep to yourself and let go from everybody else.
Yeah, that's one of my friends. He and I were talking about. He's like, "You got to do what's right for you and not care about anything else."
Right.
It's like, I know. When you were growing up, even though they were giving you the opportunity to create art and stuff, Do you remember like the first piece that made you that lit a bulb in you or something?
I don't know. I've never been asked that question. That's good.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, wow. I may have to think on this one.
Okay.
I know that my mother was so determined that I was going to be given the opportunity. She never had the opportunity. And
Okay.
her mother died in the pandemic of 1918.
Oh, wow.
And mother was 4. So she never knew her mother, and she had a few stepmothers along the way. But she didn't get the opportunity to do a lot of things, like take lessons. Like now kids take lessons from the day they're born. And but she didn't. So when I was probably 4, I started, and the crazy part was I had a lot of friends whose mother suggested that they take things, but somewhere along the way they quit. I didn't know you could. Nobody told me I could quit. You if you take it on, you finish, and so I did. And I started taking dance lesson from Lillian Schiller downtown Knoxville when I was 4, and I continued to take from her until I was 18.
Oh, wow.
This is what you call not quitting. And I was at UT when I finally quit, but I started teaching dancing. And this is all my friends, just because they all had mothers mostly. Women stayed home back then. They didn't work as much. My mother worked every day but Wednesday, and that was her day off, and Sunday she went to church. So nobody else had that. Their parents were always there, but I learned to be on my own. I'm an only child. There is no more. And so I took dancing, and then when I was 14, my dance teacher said, and all this time, I don't think art was even. I drew for people, and I enjoyed drawing, and my dad would draw for me. But as far as saying, wow, this is what you need to do, Gale, for the rest of your life, it never happened like that.
Were there art classes in
no art,
middle or high?
No. Nobody had art.
Wow.
I mean, we had Bible classes, and things like that, but no art in high school. And the first time I majored in art at the University of Tennessee, and I only had one class that was really art, and it was art history. And I sat in a dark room watching slides for an hour and a half.
Wow.
And that was it. So, but anyway, I started teaching dancing for my dance teacher so I could have my lessons for free. And, I think I was probably making, I don't know, $1.50 an hour or something like that. But for me, that was pretty good. Back in the day, it was 1953 or 2 or something. So I taught dance, and of course, when I was in high school, that was when I started teaching. And the interesting thing was, I got off from school to go work. I was like, I don't know how many people remember this, and maybe they still do this, I don't know. But there were some families that were considered hardship families, and their young people, when they were old enough to work in a grocery store, bagging or delivering things or whatever, and they went to work, and they were allowed to get off early. Well, I was not in a hardship family, but I got off just like they did. I would have all my classes before noon, and and I'd get my lunch, and then I left at 1 o'clock every day, and everybody else stayed till 3. And some people stayed to 4. And I was in the band, so I had to stay at school on Friday. So that was my day off. But I worked on Saturdays. So I worked every day, got on a bus and rode. It was great when I finally got a car. I had a 52 Buick.
Oh, wow.
And nobody told me it had Dynaflow and you had to do something with it, so it just fell apart. But I would drive to work, go through my mother's beauty salon, grab my bag of dance clothes, and go to Clinch. It ran well, still does, I guess, parallel with church down to the Gay Street and the highway. And I would work until 6 o'clock at night.
That's amazing.
Then I would go to my mother's salon, and we would ride the bus home until I could drive. Then I drove her home.
Wow.
But it was, so I've always worked, so I don't know how it feels not to. I
have had a job since I was in the 7th grade.
Yeah.
I worked at the ballparks, like keeping score, tending to the field,
cool.
which doesn't seem like much, but
it's a lot.
Like I would make $3 a game, and a game would be an
bad
hour and a half
back
long.
Then.
Yeah, and it was, but the longest breaks I think I ever had were between jobs. I think I had like a month off.
Really?
In between 2 jobs, and my dad was like,
"What are you gonna do?"
One of my friends came over. He's like, "How are you doing today, Mr. Collins?" He's like, "I'm just sporting that loser upstairs." I was like, "Good Lord, Dad!" It was. Yeah, I took like a month off, but that
funny.
was it. So Fulton, because it was a vocational school, we had that as called work study.
Oh, yeah.
To where it's like juniors or seniors, you had to be able to drive yourself.
That was the rule, huh?
And we had 3 or 4 guys in the print shop that they would go and work at a printing company every day.
Well, see, I think that's not a bad thing.
I go back up to Fulton a lot, and it's a real bummer that the vocational department is kind of gone.
Is it?
They taught woodworking, upholstery, electrical, auto mechanics.
That's where
printing.
I painted.
Yeah, printing.
Down there. But what did they do instead?
They don't have printing anymore. They have 2 graphic design classes. I think one's more like web design, and one of them's more print design. But I talked to Miss Campbell, who took that over, because I still go up and talk to the kids, and she was like, "Yeah, when I started this, my print shop teacher had the greatest name, Conley Miracle."
Oh, how cool was that?
But when he retired, she didn't know how to work any of the printing equipment, so she just got rid of it all. And I was like, I wish I would have known you then, because I would have taken that and found somewhere to put that. Because that's stuff we built. Like he would buy lots of presses, and he'd be like, "Okay, I got these 2. This one almost works, and this one will strip the parts off of." So I had to learn how to kind of build a press up from the press from the ground up. But and the kids don't get that anymore.
No,
and it's kind of a bummer. Like it's especially like auto mechanics and electrical. If they had a plumbing department, I think they would do gangbusters.
Yeah.
Because that's where. It's
I know Farragut High School has a whole. Have you been to their vocational part? I mean, it's amazing.
I've heard one school, maybe Carnes, has, I think, an HVAC department, which I'm like, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Like that's, Knoxville desperately needs more of that, technicians.
Yeah.
I'll have to talk to somebody out at Farragut and see if I can go out there.
I painted there. I didn't even realize it was there. I mean, I knew the building was there, but I'd always painted in the main high school and in the gym and everything. Yeah. But you should go see it downstairs where they have all the woodworking and the building, and I mean, it looks like a college would look.
There, when I was in high school, Fulton, Carnes, Bearden, Farragut, and Oak Ridge all had print shops.
Oh,
all of them. And I actually had 5 or 6 job offers when I got out of high school to go and teach the print shop at one of the high schools.
Really?
And I was like, I'm too young and too headstrong. I'll get mad at kids, and I can't do that. And I'm too big. I can't do that. I can't do that. Here, I'll come around. I'll ask that question maybe in a different way. When you all were growing up, did you get to go to museums and stuff? Did your folks take you? No, you were working all the time.
I was working.
You were working all the time.
It was kind of unusual because I mean, we took trips.
Yeah.
And there was no Disney. You know, or places like that to go so much. But we would go to the beach and things like that. But no, in fact, I know it sounds crazy, but with all these lessons, I was taking piano. I took organ. I took everything that you could take, and but nobody ever mentioned what you're supposed to do with it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, yeah, I could play the organ, I could play the piano, but I see myself sitting in a restaurant or a bar playing.
Yeah.
And, you know, so it was weird. Nobody's ever asked me that. You're a very smart man.
Thank you.
You be sure and leave that.
Yeah.
But nobody ever asked me how. I don't even. I mean, I don't even know how it kind of evolved. It just happened.
I was going to say, was there? So you don't know that there was a point where it's like, oh, I can do art for a living.
Yeah, no.
No, it just by the time it happened, you were already doing it.
Yeah, I was, you know, I mean, I couldn't, since I worked, I couldn't be in any plays at school because they practiced after school.
Yeah.
Gale was teaching some children.
Yeah.
You know, but I did do some backdrops for some of them. They weren't real good.
Okay.
You know, but they were there. And so that's probably as close to doing something with art that I ever did in high school, except that I would entertain people drawing stuff for them. And they said, Gale, draw me a whatever. And, but no.
Okay.
Isn't that weird?
In that time, because I know this was kind of a bigger thing, but I don't know. Like working were like comic books or cartoons when you were a kid. Were you really into comic books or cartoons? No.
Mm-mm.
So that's my dad when he was in the service. They gave them comic books, and it was like the 1960s Spider-Man.
Oh yeah.
And so when he got out of the service, he brought me those. So that was like the first thing I saw that was art.
Yeah.
In our house, because we didn't go to music. My dad was a truck driver. Mom worked for the phone company.
Yeah. Well,
I'm still the only artist in my entire family.
Wow.
So getting to pour over like Spider-Man and Doctor Strange and all those comic
you know,
books.
and I don't remember having a lot of comic books. And I know that I didn't have coloring books.
Yeah.
Because my dad, you know, don't do that.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't, and if somebody asked me what I was going to do with the rest of my life, honestly, I don't think it ever occurred to me that I needed to think about it.
Oh. Oh, there it is down there. Little interlude from John Denver.
Yes. And he is loud.
Yeah.
He's good, but he's loud.
So you go to UT and take art. Like, what was the thought process there? Just since.
Well, I actually had several other places I wanted to go. I mean, I had friends going to other schools, and I really wanted to go to Emory and Henry in Virginia, but my dad went to UT, and when he got out of the Army, that's how he studied.
No worries. Do you need to answer that? We can.
Okay, there it is. Sorry,
No.
John. No offense, but so I went to UT, but one of the main reasons that I went to UT was because that's where my mother and daddy said I was going. Nobody, I mean, I mentioned some, maybe some other places, but no.
Okay.
It was like it was expected.
Okay.
I guess.
Okay.
So I did.
Did you still work while you went?
Well, for the first few months that I was there, but I tried out for majorette because I had taken from Claudette Riley, who was kind of the famous Miss Majorette of America here in Knoxville. I mean, everybody that's my age, if they took baton, they took.
Oh, okay.
And so I tried out for majorette. Unfortunately, I could twirl great, but I sure didn't look like those last pretty curvy ladies.
Oh.
I looked more like a 12-year-old boy.
Oh.
So, but they suggested that since I had been in the band in high school, I played the clarinet. That was another thing. so they said, why don't you just join the band? And this is interesting because this is something that very few people know. And every time I tell them, they go, you got to be kidding. When I decided to join the band, there weren't but 2 other girls in the band. And technically, I don't think there were any other girls maybe before me but the majorettes and the band sponsor, the one that walked with the drum major. And when we started talking to people about it, they said, well, this is an ROTC band. University of Tennessee was an ROTC band. No girls. They weren't supposed to be in there. And that's how the band started.
Yeah.
Years. Way before I was born. And then it kind of progressed. And I think maybe for concerts or something girls could play. I don't know. But I just remember that there were only 3 of us that wanted to march. And they said, well, you'll have to wear skirts.
Oh, God.
I know. There you are. And we had to literally, I think we went and talked to, I don't know, some higher ups than I even knew existed to get in the band to march and wear pants. And so I probably only weighed 90 pounds. And so they gave me this uniform that would have fit you.
Oh, God.
And my mother had to take it up.
Oh, my
and
God.
my dad, when my dad had season tickets to all the UT games from the time he got out of the service. And he would be sitting up in the stadium and he would look down and they'd say, so which one's her? And he goes, well, I don't know, but she's the ones where her back pockets touch because they'd taken it, mother had taken it up to the point where they overlapped in the back. And it was kind of interesting. And then that was when Major Raba was there.
Okay.
And Raba was there the year I was there, and then he retired.
Okay.
Because he was not really great health, and he was older. He'd been there for a long time. And so when I guess it was after Christmas when we were on quarters then.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I know it was quarters because I worked at PetSafe for a while.
Uh-huh.
And Randy Boyd, when he went to UT, I think it was the late 70s, early 80s. And he's always talked about quarters.
Yeah.
Because he was like, it costs this much per quarter.
Yeah.
So I got as much as I could out of every quarter. So that's how I remember.
Yeah. So it was quarters.
Yeah.
And when I came back, the new band director, and his name is, it's not good because I should be able to remember him. But he was more stern. Everything had to be exact.
Yeah.
And was it Julian?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
because Julian was there forever.
Forever, yeah. And so this was 1961.
Yeah.
And so I was playing my clarinet. And I wasn't that great at the clarinet because I only played it so I could be in the band.
Yeah.
And twirl. And so he said, Miss Ferguson, that was my maiden name.
Yeah.
He said, I'm going to move you to second clarinet. And I said, okay. Up second clarinet. A week or so later, Miss Ferguson, do you really like the clarinet? I said, honestly, no. He said, I'm going to move you to the last chair, second clarinet. And so then the next time he looked at me and he goes, Miss Ferguson. I said, yes, Dr. Julian. And he said, he didn't say anything. He just looked at me. And I said, where is there left for me to go? And Dr. Julian looked right at me and said, home.
Oh, my God.
Home. And I thought, oh, man, okay. And so I said, but this was the year that we got the uniforms we have now.
Yeah.
That was the year they got new ones.
Oh, okay.
The brand new ones, the ones that look like they do now. And that was 61.
Wow.
And I said, Dr. Julian, And he said, yes. I said, I'm going to take my uniform with me. No, you're not. Yes, I am. No, you're not. I walked back. Of course, we were under the football stadium back then. We were in that hole back there. It was damp. And I went back to where all the uniforms were hung. There was mine, my hat, the whole thing. I took them. I threw it over my back, and I said, goodbye, Dr. Julian. And he said, you can't do that. And I said, watch me. And I did. I took it, and it's hanging in the closet in my house. And the interesting part was, they had the big shindig.
Yeah.
When what was it, 200 years or whatever it was. And so one of the people that was in charge, they called me because I had my picture on Facebook with my grandchildren in my uniform. I was wearing my uniform. And he said, is this Gale Ferguson? And I said, oh, yeah, it's the same person. And he said, do you really have that uniform? And I said, yes, sir, I do. Why? And he goes, well, we're getting ready to have this big thingy.
Yeah.
Would you be interested? You can come free. Don't cost you whatever the exorbitant amount was. And he said, you can come free if you'll just mingle and wear your uniform. I said, okay, I will. He said, can you still get it on? I said, bite your tongue. Of course I can get it on. I weigh the same today as I weighed when I walked out of the University of Tennessee with the uniform. So anyway, he said, okay. So I put on the uniform.
Oh, my God.
And the only thing I didn't have with the I had the hat, the coat, the pants with the pockets touching in the back. The only thing I didn't have was we wore I always thought it looked like a safety patrol. What do you call those?
I say sash.
Yeah, it was the one that buckled around, and it looked like a safety patrol.
Yeah, almost like a bandolier.
Yeah,
but I know that's
went
military.
Around your waist, and it had a stripe here. And he said, do you still have your clarinet? And I said, yes, I do. And he goes, could you bring that? It was just funny.
That's amazing.
And so I went to it, and all the rest of them had on uniforms, but they had to have them made from pictures because nobody had one.
Yeah.
And they took all of the UT, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I could be. I think they gave our UT uniforms to some high school or a small college out in the Northwest.
Huh.
They went there, but not mine. Mine was in my closet.
That's amazing.
So we had a good time with that one, and everybody would go, where did you get the uniform? Out of my closet. And then I'd have to tell them,
about defying Dr. Julian.
I stole it. Is what I did.
There's probably some people like, you stood up to Dr. Julian.
I know. Well, I was on my way out, obviously. He told me to go home. But I did, I've loaned it to, I think, First Tennessee Bank when they were First Tennessee.
Oh, yeah.
Back whenever they did on football weekends, some of them would decorate, and they borrowed my uniform and hung it up in one of their bank places. Interesting.
So what year were you in school when you were done with band? Were you a sophomore or?
You mean, oh gosh. I was
freshman? Oh, you're
I was third quarter freshman. Okay. And I was gone.
Okay.
And I lived in the dorm for one quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my undoing because I should never have moved into the dorm. You just don't do much. Some people did,
right.
But I just didn't do well at UT. And so everybody started, I don't know, are you familiar with John Chumley? He was an artist. His father was my mother's doctor.
Okay.
But we were good friends with the family. But he has, in fact, I've got some of his paintings. They're beautiful paintings.
John Chumley.
Yeah, John Chumley. He's passed away now, but he he was talking to my mother when he was at home visiting with his family. I think he really lived up in Virginia or somewhere up in that area. And
I have a friend named Candace Chumley that she lives in Cumberland Gap. So and she's kind of an artist. So
okay.
I'll have to ask her.
He had a daughter that was doing beautiful artwork. Okay. I don't know, could have a granddaughter that is doing beautiful artwork. But he was up in that area, and he suggested to my mother and dad, he said, let her send me some of her artwork. So I sketched out a few things, sent them to him, and he called back and he says, I think she'll do well if she goes to Ringling College of Art and Design. Back then we were Ringling School. Now we're Ringling College. I always try to throw that one.
I have two friends that both went to Ringling.
Yeah, it was. Everybody said, "Oh, you're joining the circus."
Yeah.
No, but
one of them graduated in 2020, and she was kind of bummed because the pandemic kind of stopped. Yeah, she lives in West Knoxville, and she was like, the last semester really was not great.
Well, when I went there, we were old school artists.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no technology. None.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody went to a class where you learned to do graphic anything. And so I went, I was there for 2.5 years. Mm. And it was a great place, but I mean, it was nothing like UT. I mean, we would work all day in our job related fields. Mm-hmm. I was just going there as just free. I didn't have. Some people were taking like I don't know, clothes design.
Oh, okay.
Or there was 2 or 3 different things, but not. So I was just taking art,
right?
And it was a good place to be because that's all you did.
Yeah.
Nobody made you take English or anything.
Was it having grown up here? Was it a big culture shock to move to Florida on your own?
Yeah. And it was really interesting because my mother and daddy took me. They dropped me off and they went to Miami. I mean, and I never saw them again until Christmas or something,
Wow.
And so all of a sudden, but I'd been back kind of on my own for a long time.
Yeah.
Because my parents both worked, and when we moved here, we lived with my grandmother and grandfather, and they kind of took care of me. But when I moved here, I was on my own. Yeah. I knew exactly what I could and I couldn't do, and
my grandmother was a homemaker, whatever the proper term is, and my dad and his 2 brothers are all within 4 years of one another, and they all kind of just
took care of themselves.
You had to be home when it got dark.
Yeah,
and so Dad would tell me about how he was like 10, and they lived on Riverside Drive.
Oh yeah, I know where that.
And then they lived on Washington Pike.
Oh yeah.
And how he would take the bus at 10 years old, come down to downtown and watch creature features all day on a Saturday, and then get on the bus and go back home.
I know.
So when I was in high school, my little sister is 11 and a half years younger than me. So I would go to school. I would take her to school. I would go to school all day. I would have football practice or basketball practice or baseball practice. I would pick her up, get her fed, and then go to the ballpark and work.
Yeah.
How I survived high school, I still don't know.
That's kind of.
And then all weekend was tournaments or
something. You're busy.
Yeah.
But that's good.
Yeah.
So
when we had parent-teacher conferences, there was one year I showed up, and 2 of my teachers got mad at me. They were like, "Where are your parents?" I was like, "Working."
I'm so old. We didn't have parent-teacher conferences. In fact, most of my teachers never saw my parents. But I would come home. This was when I was at Moreland Heights, and I was approximately 11, I guess, or 12, and I knew that I could come home and I could watch Pinky Lee. Was on TV, black and white, one television in there, this big. I could do that. Then I had to practice piano for an hour. Then I had to do whatever homework I had to do. But nobody ever looked to see if I did it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of on honor system or something, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I had a lot of friends whose parents would just stand over them while they were
Yeah.
sitting at the dining room table doing their homework. I mean, I could have never done homework. I guess someone would have written a note to mother and daddy.
I got in trouble when I was in high school because for like math, I had one teacher that would assign us like 100 questions, like every night. So I would come home after doing all that, and I would do 20 questions. And I was like, I got it. And they would all be right. And then I would turn in the next day, and it'd be like, Mr. Collins, this is an F. And I was like, but I got all of them right. He was like, but you didn't do all 100. I was like, I did 20. I understand it. I'm ready to move on. And Mom and Dad kind of stood up for me. They're like, did he get one of them wrong? No, he's got it. And it took like, Coach Sharp, who was kind of the head of the math, to kind of pull them in and say, no, he got them right. Leave him alone.
Yeah.
Like, of just like, he's got it.
Yeah.
And even as an adult now, it's like 100 questions. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
To learn algebra. Like, that's nuts.
Oh, and I was never an algebra person. I never. I took algebra, but then I took Latin. Why did I not take Spanish? I would love to know how to speak Spanish. Yeah. I deal with a lot of people who speak Spanish now because when I go to places and paint, you know, and there's so many people who speak Spanish in the United States. Yeah. And I said, and I took Latin, and I'm pretty sure that I will never speak to anyone who speaks Latin to me, unless it's a doctor.
Yeah.
And, but.
Yeah, it's, I took Spanish 2 years in middle school, and we were the last class. It was 8 classes a day back then. And we cleaned the classroom. We didn't learn. I learned how to roll my R's by saying ruffles have ridges. It's the only thing I learned in Spanish. Oh. And same thing. Like I wish I would have learned it or whatever.
I think it would be super.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about doing it, but then I can't figure out when.
Yeah. There's a guy I know that there's an app on your phone called Duolingo that he does it, and he's like, it's like 15 minutes a day.
Really?
He's like, I do it while I'm driving. I do it while I'm on a walk.
That's a good idea.
He was like,
I drive a lot.
And he was like, that's how I learn. Okay, we're going to go back to Ringling. Uh-huh. So were you at Ringling for 4 full years, or was it?
It was a 3. Then now it is. I mean, I think it's a 4-year school, but back then it was 3, and I was there for a half year because I went in the middle.
Okay.
And of the year, like in February.
Was it like you were saying how your track was kind of art? Was it teaching you a bunch of media like charcoal and watercolor and all that? Were you all doing any like intaglio or screen printing or anything like that? No,
never saw. Never mentioned it.
Okay.
Wasn't mentioned.
I was really lucky in that when I was at Fulton, my high school art teacher, Mrs. Waller, her and her husband had been professors at UT, and then she came to Fulton. So I got to etch in metal.
Oh, how
I got
cool
to
is
etch
that?
in linoleum, do relief printing, screen printing, everything. And by the end, I'm still not good at hand illustration, even though I've been doing it forever. And I think the last semester I was in like Art 6 my last year.
Wow.
And she finally was like, I was like, I'm not very good. And she was like, no, but you work hard. And I was like, well, thank you, Mrs. Waller.
That's important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
so it was all sorts of media.
But we just did. We had painting class. The one that I disliked the most was perspective.
Okay.
And my perspective teacher, I cut every class I could and still get out of there.
Yeah.
And every time I would show up, he would go, Miss Ferguson has decided to grace us with her presence. And I'd go, you've got to quit saying that. But he did. But the thing was that I did get, I got an A in there because our final exam was this picture that you had to, he told us what it was. He wasn't going to show you, but he said, I want you to draw me in pen and ink a picture of a man fly fishing in the middle of a stream. And he said, I want it to be perfect and look just like it would look if you were taking a photograph. And so I did. And I thought, well, I'm not here enough. It's going to be bad. But he pulled me up to the desk and he said, I'm giving you an A. And I said, what for? And he said, because you're one of the only people in here and they've been coming every day, that did this man, and you realized that the reflection in the water, you could see underneath his hat instead of like it would be on the top.
Right.
And he said a lot of people just doubled it.
Yeah.
But he said the whole perspective. That's why we take this class, Gale. And I said, so what you're saying is I didn't really need this class.
Can get a refund.
Can get a refund. And he said, well, no, I'm sure you really needed my class. But it was kind of like that. It was very casual.
So they weren't like setting you up to like, you're going to learn this and here's how you're going to apply it in the future. No. Were you learning like abstract or modernism or anything, or was it? It
was just, you pretty much were on your own.
Okay.
They
or any history classes? Or?
Oh, we did have art history.
Okay.
In my dorm, that was very interesting because Mr. Rampola, and I will never forget his name, Mr. Rampola and his wife there was a big dorm, everybody. And then there was the Riverside dorm where we could look out of our back window and see the alligators and the big gopher rats and everything, because this was Florida and no air conditioning.
Oh.
No anything. We had lights. We didn't have little lanterns or something. But no TV. There was one TV in the whole school, and it was in the lounge part of the big dorm. That's when Russia and the United States were coming together.
Yeah.
And then Russia turned around and
the
went
Bay
back.
of Pigs. Yeah.
And because we were ready.
You're in
we
Florida.
Were right there. We stood on the Tamiami Trail and watched the Army on their tanks and everything go, and we waved our American flags.
Oh my God!
Because we thought, we were right there, and everybody was so afraid that if they went to Cuba, they were going to blow Florida off the map.
Yeah.
And we were all kind of scared. But the thing about it was, nobody called from home and said, "You want to come home?" It just wasn't like that back then.
Yeah.
That's the first thing people would do now.
Yeah.
They'd say, I'm going down to get my daughter. I'm renting a plane, and she's coming home.
I am 43. I will turn 44 this year. Whenever I go out of town, my mom says, text me when you get there.
Oh, yeah.
Like, even at this age, I was like, Mom, I'm going to be... Text me when you get there.
Well, nobody. We didn't even.
Yeah.
I never called anybody because the only phone we had was a payphone in my dorm. And so if I wanted to talk to somebody, I had to call them on the payphone and say, "Call me back."
And hope you caught them at home.
Yes.
That they weren't gone.
Because they weren't doing whatever they
machines.
did that I wasn't a party of.
Okay, so you're down there and you graduate.
Well, I didn't graduate.
Oh, okay.
I left.
Okay.
And I was going to go back, but I got married instead. And my husband, who was also a student there, didn't want to go back, and we didn't.
Okay.
And so...
where was he from?
He was from Leeds, Alabama.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Anyway, so we didn't, and I moved to Alabama. This wasn't in my plan.
Yeah.
It wasn't, but we did, and it was a nice little town. We lived in Birmingham at first, so I started. And this has nothing. This has nothing to do with art. So this is how it evolved. I was looking for a job, and he was going to go back to drafting school because that's what he ended up doing.
Okay.
He was a draftsman. And so I worked for the Birmingham Minnie chapter of the Girls Club in Birmingham, Alabama.
Okay.
I got a job, and they had 4 jobs available. And I went in and applied. And the lady said, "Which job are you applying for?" And I said, "All 4." And she said, "All of them?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am. I need to work because my husband is in school and we're living in an apartment and I need to work." And so I taught dance. So this is where all that came back to help.
Yeah.
I taught dance. I taught art. I taught baton.
Okay.
And I taught personal hygiene to teenage girls.
Okay.
It was an interesting job.
Yeah.
And most of the children they came there after school.
Oh yeah, this is probably poor kids.
Yes, and we were set in the middle of one of the poorest neighborhoods in the city, and this was like heaven to these children.
Yeah.
And so I really enjoyed it, and I got to do all those things that my mother made me take, Yeah. And I loved teaching the art to the kids, and that was good. And I was there for 2 years.
Okay.
And then
let me ask this: were there kids that you saw kind of a raw talent in that you were like, keep working at this, or was it kind of all of them?
I saw that more in the ones that were taking dance, because some had never, they didn't know what it was to take dance. I mean, I'm sure they'd seen it, but they didn't. And but it was amazing, and the funny thing was, I was so proud of myself for getting a job and 4 jobs I had, but I only got paid like I was one.
Okay.
I mean, I don't even understand that. But the thing was, I never thought about what I should have been doing. I think when I was 21 and I was trying to we were just getting by. And so I think sometimes you just erase all that other stuff.
Right.
And you work, you do what you have to do.
Right.
To make a living and to move on.
Yeah. So you did that for 2 years while he was still in school.
And then we moved. Then I got him a job. I found somebody that needed a draftsman, and I took some of his stuff to them, and they hired him. And so then we moved to. We stayed in Birmingham for a while. Then we decided it was time to have a child, and so we did. And then we moved to Leeds, where he was from.
Okay.
And it was kind of like Mayberry. It was really. I mean, I was, of course, Knoxville wasn't like New York or anything, but it felt like the difference in the two places. So it was. I mean.
I'm trying to think why I know the name Leeds, Alabama.
Well, there was a thing on TV or on your phone or something about this lady that was painting the Ukraine, the sunflower on all the stores in Leeds, Alabama.
Oh, okay.
I saw it.
There may have been a football player from Leeds.
Well, no, Charles Barkley.
Fun fact, I've met Charles Barkley.
Yes.
He is 2 inches shorter than me. And I picked out a cigar for him.
What?
I was in Atlanta. My friend and I went there solely to go to Cam Newton's cigar lounge.
Right.
And we're sitting there. We got there early at like 5:30. And it's a Saturday night, and we're sitting there, and Charles Barkley walks in. And I was like, oh, my God, Charles Barkley just walked in. And my buddy's like, oh, my God, that is Charles Barkley.
Yeah.
And as we're sitting there, he goes back to the humidor to buy a cigar. And my buddy's like, you need to go back there and get a cigar for Charles Barkley. And he just started. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And I got up and I went. And the minute I opened the door, he did a double take. He went, how we doing today, big guy? He was the nicest guy in the world.
He is.
Yeah.
He graduated with some of my daughter's friends from Leeds because we moved back to Knoxville. But everybody that talked about Charles, his grandmother was just his, she loved him, and he loved his grandmother and his parents. But he, that's everybody that they said, how do I know Leeds? And I go, Charles Barkley.
There's a comedian that he talked about. There was one time where he was going to gigs somewhere, and he was sitting in first class, and he's 5'3", and he said he goes in and he sits down, and then in walks next to him Charles Barkley, and he's not a basketball fan, and he sits down, and he said, I'm not kidding. We were in first class, and every single man that walked on that plane stopped and had a moment with Charles Barkley.
Really?
And he said, and Charles Barkley was nice and polite to every single person that walked in. Every single person, he was like,
that he was known
good to meet
for that.
Good to meet you. Like, just the sweetest guy.
Well, everybody in Leeds, Alabama, they said, Charles was great. And so, I mean, I was in his presence 2 or 3 times, but nobody ever introduced us,
Well, it was.
But this was before he became famous.
When we saw him in there, and by the time I got back to our table, the manager had already come over and was moving him up to VIP.
Oh, okay.
And I wonder if I was involved for that. But we were the only ones on that side, and my buddy was like, what do I have to do to get us up to VIP? Like, he was just like, we have to go up there and talk to him.
Yeah.
Like, he was. And then later on in the evening, it got really packed. And so I'm from East Knoxville. I'm used to being the only white guy in the room. So I have no issues. It's awesome. But in this bar, we were the only 2 white guys. And we were both wearing like black jeans, sport coats, dress shirts, tucked in. And every once in a while, somebody will look at us. Like, I guess, like, are these tech guys? Like, how did they find this place? I was like, oh, because this place is great. And then in walked, and we were sitting with our backs to the staircase that went up to VIP, and in walked Cam Newton. And he walked in, he started going up the staircase, and then leaned over and looked at me and went, and nodded at me. I was like, and I was like, he probably thought, did I play football against him somewhere? But and then I got to know his uncle. It was his uncle's birthday that night, and he talked to us. And then when we went to leave, he was trying to get us to stay. Like, it was, but meeting Charles Barkley was, he'll never remember that, but it meant the world to me. Like, it was amazing.
He's a pretty cool guy.
Okay, so you're moved to Leeds.
Alabama.
You're still teaching.
I'm still
doing the job.
I worked at a print company.
Okay.
Designing, putting together football programs for a little school up there near Leeds.
So if I said Ruby Lith, do you remember what Ruby Lith is? That's the stuff that you put down and scratch, and then it may be even older than that. A form of design where you would take Letrostat.
I was just I had the thing that I used had a dial on it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I used it to do the lettering and place the.
I can't remember what that's called.
I got kind of let go after football season because they told me they wanted the pictures to be like this big, tiny, maybe 2x2 or something like that of the football players. Yeah. Well, I made them big, and they had to put them in the.
Oh no.
And the school was thrilled.
Yeah.
That they paid for the little ones. And so I probably I guess technically I was let go from that job.
So you're working there, and how long were you all in Leeds?
We were there from till 1975, I guess, when my dad passed away here. He and Mom were living here, and when he passed away, I mean, my mother was angry. I mean, he was 57 years old, and that was not even in the ballpark. Nobody expects to go that way, and he did. I mean, he had a heart thing. And his mother outlived him, which was also kind of hard. She was, because she's the one that had kept me and everything when I was growing up. My mother and daddy both worked. But so my mother actually knew someone who knew someone. And I don't know if are you familiar with, or would you even remember Carborundum? It's a company. I think they did like something for the steam plants or the mills that kept pollution from. Know. And anyway, so my husband worked there. We moved back here, lived in West Knoxville.
Wow.
I had 2 children by then, and I still do.
Yeah.
and then I think the first time I ever painted a mural in somebody's house was about, let's see, my daughter was born in 70. So I think it was probably 1973 or 4.
Okay.
When I painted my first mural on somebody's wall.
Okay.
It was a circus theme for her children.
Okay.
So,
and they found you and asked you, or
yeah. Well, actually, she was my cousin.
Oh, okay.
So then somebody saw it, and it was just I've never ever advertised, but it just snowballed from there. Somebody else would ask me, and then somebody else would ask me, and then a school would ask me, and I just did, and it was kind of like, because we had never. When I was in school, nobody ever mentioned a mural.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just didn't. We were working on canvases. The biggest thing I think I did in school was probably 18 by 24 canvas. And so nobody said, this is how you do murals on the wall. So I was learning, kind of doing it by the seat of my pants. I mean, because I really, but I did have, I had the knowledge of how to paint, but I had to figure out how to take it from an easel to, sometimes the walls were 4 stories high.
Wow.
And so that's how that started. And then it just got bigger. And then I started painting. Probably not important to you, but women will remember when everybody was painting clothing.
Okay.
We painted T-shirts, sweatshirts, dresses. And a friend of mine at church, I went to Central Baptist Bearden, and she was good at business. I'm not so much. Still not so much. I mean, I don't have a degree in that for sure. But she was good at it. She was good at talking to people. I was more the one that sat in the background and painted, So she and I started doing that, and we went to Nashville. We went to all kinds of shows and sold things. And I mean, she was in charge of buying. I was in charge of painting, and I would turn out like 25 sweatshirts with some fancy little thing on it in a day.
Wow!
So I was like a machine, pretty much. And we did that for, I think we probably did it for about 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And then it kind of, I was still doing murals.
Yeah.
And I would, one of the first big murals that I did was back in, goodness, I don't even know when it was, but the owner, John Ferris, are you familiar with John?
I recognize
He owns a lot of McDonald's.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think his son, one of his or 2 of his sons still run some of them. But he called me and wanted me to paint his windows. So I painted Knoxville windows for a long time.
Yeah.
I painted First Tennessee, the Jake Butcher's building,
Yeah.
In fact, they wanted a big T during football season all the way at the top of that building.
Wow.
I said, I can't go up there. And they said, we've got the window washer thing. I said, I get nervous watching them in a movie. I can't go up and be on one. And so I would paint down where I could use a 12-foot ladder or scaffolding or something.
There's a friend of mine that's what she does. Lauren Claiborne is her name. that she does a lot of art on windows now for
Well,
places all over town.
I did it for 15 years.
Yeah.
I painted all the McDonald's. Then when they had their playlands, I painted about 30 of them in the southeast. I did the big murals and all the playlands. And that's what I did. But I painted, do you ever go to, is it Alumni Hall?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Well, I painted their window.
Oh, okay.
And it's been about probably 7 or 8 years ago, and it's still on there. It was UT stuff. So, so I did a lot of that.
If you could go back when you started and give one piece of advice, do you know what that would be on doing a mural or doing any art in public?
Probably, I would say if somebody wanted to do it, the thing that separates the good stuff from the mediocre stuff is doing your own thing and make it different from everybody else's.
Okay.
You don't want to look just like everybody else. You want yours, somebody to say, oh, I know who did that. That looks like Gale's work. And don't limit yourself, because I've known a lot of people that wanted to work with me, and they did. But I don't know what it is inside of you that makes you want to do this. Mm-hmm. But they thought it looked like fun.
Yeah.
It wasn't fun. It was rewarding.
Right.
There's a difference between rewarding and having fun. Working outside in the cold when you had to chip the ice in your bucket to wash your brushes.
Yeah.
Or painting a window. I know I painted a window at a restaurant, 2 or 3 windows. Everything looked great. As I'm pulling away, this big cloud comes over, and literally it looked like Mary Poppins stuff on her sidewalk. It just pulled all my artwork off the window and rolled it down into the bushes around the place. And I thought, oh, no. But so I don't do a lot of windows anymore. But for a while there, I was doing it 7 days a week, 10, 12 hours a day. And I've many times I've told my son, it was so funny because he said something about murals or something. He was a teenager. I said, these murals are putting you through the University of Tennessee. Let's remember that. And then he caught on to the whole thing. And I would go at night. I would paint all day in some building. Then at night, I would paint on the stores with my headlights on the stores when it was dark. Yeah. And then, like, I painted a pizza place, and I can't remember. It's not there anymore, but it was sort of set back, and it was on the strip.
Yeah.
And my son, he said, hey, Mom, guess what? And I said, what? And he goes, I went in there today and told them you painted the windows, and they gave me free pizzas. I said, really? And I was in the dark and the cold with my headlights on there. Yeah. And nobody was there, so nobody could give me a pizza, but he gets a pizza. So I said, and schooling on top of that. You get an education and free. And he would do that all the time. I mean, he was so, I don't know whether it took guts or he was hungry. I don't know which it was, but he would go, like I painted for McDonald's all the time. He'd go in and go, my mom painted your windows. Can I get a couple of cheeseburgers? Well, yeah. Sure, hon. It's fine.
That's chutzpah.
That's what it is, I'd say. So, anyway.
Is he in sales now? That's the thing.
No, he's not. But he does have a job.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody gives him free anything. Not today.
I'm trying to think. When I worked at the ballparks, it was so weird. It was a husband and wife that kind of managed it, Mac, and I can't even remember her name because she was so mean to everybody. But Mac was the sweetest guy in the world. And she would be like, you get, for working all day on a Saturday, you get 1 free burger and 1 free drink.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And there was an older woman that worked in there, and she's like, "Oh no, honey, you go get whatever you want." And Mac would come in there and be like, "Can you fix me a cheeseburger too?" But if she caught me, it'd be like, "You're paying for that, right?" And I was like, "Yes."
So she's probably why they were successful.
Yeah, probably so. Do you know the furthest place you've ever gone to
paint?
To paint.
Let me see. Nebraska.
Okay.
And I got a call from Venezuela once.
Oh wow.
But I told him no. I can't fly with my paint because my car's full. I mean, there's nowhere for anyone to sit. I have my ladders in the front seat with me. You'll have to look at it when you
Okay.
And then the whole back is full of the paint. And so I said, I kind of tried to figure it out because I had somebody just it was probably last year, call me and want me to come to now I've painted in Dallas and several places there. I've painted in Florida. I've painted in almost every state except I think I was Seattle. That's even further than Nebraska.
Yeah. Okay.
And I've painted in Chicago and I've painted in New York and just about everyone. Haven't painted in New Mexico.
Okay.
But a lot of states.
Okay. And it's all word of mouth.
Yeah. I've never advertised. Never paid for it. I've had advertisement because somebody, put my name on a program or something.
Right.
Said we appreciate Gale Hinton, blah blah blah.
I wonder if you know him. There's a sign. I do not know his name. A sign painter in town. That's an older gentleman. I think he's like in his 80s, and he's done almost every sign here in town. And somebody was telling me, it was the folks at Stripe Light, he did their sign for them, and they said he had the ladder, and his paint was in his truck. He would go up there and paint for a little bit, and then go back down the ladder, dip, and then go back up and Sarah there was like, "Can we get you an attachment for your?" He was like, "No,
no.
This is how I do it."
That's how I do it.
Oh, really?
My paint is down here.
Yeah.
And I use paper plates.
Okay.
Styrofoam plates.
Yeah.
Paper plates, but two together because they have to be sturdy. I fill them with paint. I never have more. I never have one color on a plate, no matter even if I'm painting one color. Like if I were painting something, like I have at least 2 to 3 colors.
Okay.
To paint, I put it on the plate. I blop blop blop. I buy my paint at Lowe's.
Okay.
I've bought it at other places too, but they know me now.
Yeah.
So, and my paint had to be approved because I've actually painted in the neonatal units of hospitals.
Okay.
Where they were bringing the brand new babies in and putting them right here, and I'm painting, and I said, I hope I'm, going to influence you about your life.
Yeah.
But I put it on the plate. I hold it I go up the ladder. I mean, I go up scaffolding with one arm and my paint in the plate, and probably I'll have 2 brushes in my mouth. I do wear a apron, and I stick brushes in there and paper towels and stuff, and then I go up and I paint, and then I come back down and get more, so when I was painting in a gym one time, and we had scaffolding, so I did take my paint up several jars of it because I buy it by the gallon or the 5 gallon.
Okay.
And that's the other thing that recently paint has gone up.
Oh yeah.
Along with everything else.
Yeah.
But I think what I was paying $52 for a gallon, I'm now paying $60, $80. Anyway, so it hits everybody. You wouldn't think it'd have much to do with art.
I'm applying tonight is the deadline at midnight. I'm applying for a Bailey art grant to build a screen printing shop in my basement.
Oh, cool.
And the Speedball ink for the screen printing has gone way up.
It's like gasoline.
Yeah, it's like everything.
Everything has gone up. But so that's how I do it. I
Okay.
the old school way, you know.
Okay.
And I've never ever used a spray anything.
Okay.
I don't do that. And I watched a guy do it one day when I was somewhere, and I said, well, I couldn't.
I don't know how they have the control.
I have to have a brush.
Yeah, I don't know how they have the control. There's some spray painted things.
It's got a really tiny.
Oh, okay.
It's not like, you know, and spray. It has a little attachment that looks like a little tube.
Okay.
And so you can make fine lines with it.
Yeah.
But I prefer to take a brush and make my own lines. And I never use any patterns. I freehand everything. I've never used a project. Oh gosh, no, that's sinful. Yeah. And I freehand lettering. And I've never used a projector to do anything.
Wow.
And you know.
Do you use the grid? You freehand
everything.
There was one place that I was looking at doing a mural, but and somebody who I was talking to said, look at it as a grid, like on the computer. Each cinder block is so big. So think about it that way when you're drawing like a circle that you're drawing when you do your sketch on the computer, because that's how I'm best at.
Yeah.
Think about it that each block is a certain size.
Yeah, I guess if you're on block.
Yeah.
When I do, like I've done circles that were 24 feet from the center.
Wow.
And have you been to the school, Hardin Valley?
Yeah.
Academy.
Yeah.
It's high school.
Yeah.
Well, I did over the stairwell. I did a huge circle, and I was on scaffolding, and there were no blocks. This was just, you know, it was above the stairwell. When you walk in their front door, there's the big stairwell, and part of the wall was close to the stairwell. The stairwell kind of curved, and the only way to get me up there, I asked one of the custodial guys. I said, I need to be up over those stairs, and he goes, oh, well, that's hard. And I said, can you do it? And he said, yeah, for a price. And I said, okay, I'll just pass that on to the school.
Yeah.
So when I came in the next day, he had put concrete blocks, stuffed them with something, put the legs in for the scaffolding till he had me up to the one level.
Yeah.
And then you went up another, and he got me all the way up to the top. And when I walked in, there were a bunch of guys, teachers, I guess, probably, you know, maybe the coach.
Yeah.
You know, they were all looking up there, and I heard one of them. I just walked in, and I was going to try to go around them, and I heard one of them say, tell you this, I don't know who's going up there, but they're crazy. And he said, I wouldn't go up there. He said, that's asking to die. And so I just walked past him, you know, and I go, hi, guys, I'm going up there. And they all went, really? And I did. And I finished in a day and a half.
Oh, wow.
And it was huge. It's huge. If you ever go back in there, look at
I'll have to
over
look
the stairwell. So it's a crest.
We'll end on this. We'll circle for a landing on this. Do you have like goals or any dream jobs left? Like, you've done so much. Like, is there anything kind of left that you're like, I wish I could do that, or a mural of Charles Barkley back in Leeds?
Well, no, I have done several of Pat Summit.
Oh, yeah.
The one that, I mean, I'd enjoy, technically, my degree would have been in portraits.
Okay.
But I don't do them as much. But I painted her on a wall at Cedar Bluff Elementary.
Okay.
Or middle. I can't remember which one it was. It was on brick. And they were doing the heroes of the 20th century. And so we had, you know, Martin Luther King, the Pope, Sister I guess she's she's not mother anymore. She's Saint
Saint
Teresa,
Okay.
I guess. And then they did Lance Armstrong.
Okay.
And I did all of those. And a little bit later, Lance got in trouble.
Oh, I didn't know he got in trouble.
Lance Armstrong.
Yeah.
The bicyclist, not the astronaut.
I'm thinking of the astronaut,
No,
Neil
no.
Armstrong. I was like, wait, Neil Armstrong? He's been dead.
No, not Neil.
Lance. Oh, yeah.
And he got in trouble, so I had to go back. And they said, we've had some complaints from Mother.
Yeah.
I said, well, I realized that he did something wrong, but he still won those races.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't take that away from somebody when they did something wrong later. But it was of no avail. So my only thing was, please make this someone that will not get in trouble, so I don't have to do this again.
Yeah.
And they said, well, we were thinking of Pat Summitt. Well, Pat was still alive at the time, and I said, well, I think we're safe.
Yeah.
So I did Pat on the wall, and that I enjoyed that because I mean her murals. If you ever get into that school, go look at them. And it. But I think that this is how I live daily. Whatever I'm doing this minute is the most important thing I've ever done.
Okay.
Or, and then if you ever become completely satisfied with yourself, you're never going to get better.
Yeah.
So every one I do, I want to do it better than I could have done it yesterday.
Okay.
And so that's how I because I'm booked now through August, 7 days a week.
Wow.
And which is good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's job security. And when COVID hit, everybody else was at home. I was in my car. I had one of those papers that said I was an essential worker. It was like I was the doctor. But I was going to schools to paint. And so they had to give me one of those because they said that if you were out after a certain hour or something, that the highway patrol would pick you up and want to know what you were doing.
Yeah.
And so I had one of those pieces of paper. Huh. And everybody said, an artist is an essential worker? I said, well, there was nobody in the schools.
Yeah.
I was by myself. I worked harder during the pandemic than I do otherwise. Wow. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that is.
And it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for being on.
Yes.